Fire as a tool to manage red-cockaded woodpecker habitat. Prior to European settlement, the vegetation and wildlife communities of the southeastern United States were shaped by fires ignited by Native Americans and lightning strikes. Post-European settlement, the widespread exclusion of fire in the region increased over time, resulting in a significant change to the flora and fauna. One key example of this landscape change is the loss of open pine forests that were maintained by frequent fire, which in turn resulted in the decline of fire-dependent wildlife such as the red-cockaded woodpecker. Fire was and is a key component to maintaining open pine forests. One of the most prominent open pine forest types in the southeastern region was longleaf pine woodlands. Longleaf pine, a fire-dependent tree species, is a key attribute of most open pine forests in the southeastern U.S. where red-cockaded woodpeckers occur. Longleaf pine seedlings, known as the grass stage, are fire-resistant because the terminal bud remains protected by its long needles until the seedling is ready to start rapid growth. Once a seedling develops a deep root system with carbon reserves, it grows rapidly, known as the rocket stage, to become tall enough to escape damage from future fires. Additionally, older trees develop thick bark that provides protection from fire damage. The tree's long needles, large bud, thick twigs, and other attributes also help promote longleaf pine persistence in the presence of frequent fire. For example, the longleaf pine needles contain volatile compounds that promote fire on the landscape, which create openings for longleaf pine seeds to germinate. But what about the relationship between longleaf pines and red-cockaded woodpeckers? Red-cockaded woodpeckers excavate nest cavities in mature, typically greater than 60 years old, live longleaf pines. Longleaf pines are highly susceptible to red heart fungus, which makes it easier for woodpeckers to excavate nest cavities because the fungus softens the hardwood. The woodpeckers create resin wells around their nest cavities by pecking small holes around the entrance of the cavity to get white sap to flow down the tree trunk. This sticky sap restricts predators, such as snakes, from entering their nests. These cooperative breeding woodpeckers live in family groups that require at least 200 acres of open pine woodland as habitat and may use existing cavities for decades. Family groups of red-cockaded woodpeckers primarily forage on the branches and trunks of large pines. They forage by flicking bark plates from the trees to find arthropod adults, larvae, and eggs to eat. Red-cockaded woodpeckers are non-migratory and very loyal to their cavity tree clusters. Even if the surrounding trees have been removed, these woodpeckers will not abandon their cavity tree, despite the increased chances of mortality and failed reproduction. Therefore, the species is highly susceptible to habitat loss and fragmentation. Red-cockaded woodpeckers were once common birds, but due to habitat loss through fire exclusion, land conversion, and excessive logging, the species was added to the Threatened and Endangered Species List in 1973. Since then, prescribed fire has been the core habitat management tool for restoring red-cockaded woodpecker populations. Frequent, low-intensity prescribed fires every 1 to 3 years are recommended for maintaining open longleaf pine forests for red-cockaded woodpeckers, as it closely mimics the historic fire regime. Growing season burning from March to October helps control mid-story encroachment and promotes an herbaceous ground layer. Fire maintains open longleaf pine forests by reducing stems of deciduous hardwoods in the understory and midstory, allowing longleaf pine regeneration in the canopy gaps. Reducing mid-story encroachment through frequent fire prevents predator access and maintains foraging areas. Red-cockaded woodpeckers often forage on the lowest branches of pine trees that are kept available through reduced mid-story encroachment. Additionally, frequent fire creates a lush herbaceous layer that may increase invertebrate prey such as beetles and ants that move from the herbaceous layer to pine tree trunks. Within the growing season, managers may avoid burning during the red-cockaded woodpecker nesting season, which occurs from April to July, to minimize disturbance. Because cavity trees can be susceptible to catching fire due to dripping resin, managers typically rake fuels away from the tree bases before prescribed burns. Frequent prescribed burning across large tracts of land to create open longleaf pine forests allows red-cockaded woodpeckers to establish new breeding groups that support overall population growth and stability. As noted in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's Recovery Plan for red-cockaded woodpeckers, prescribed burning is the primary means of restoring and maintaining southern pine ecosystems. Due to the efforts of biologists and habitat managers, red-cockaded woodpeckers were downlisted from endangered to threatened in 2024. Although the species is recovering, fire will always be a required component of habitat management to maintain stable populations through the creation and maintenance of open longleaf pine forests. Thanks for watching!